Welcome back to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. Thank you for being with us. This segment is brought to you by apto.com. Check them out if you're a commercial real estate broker. Today we are talking multifamily, and we have a fun guest with us next here in Studio One. It's Ron Stang, and Ron is chairman of Stevens and Wilkinson. They are an architecture, engineering, and interior design firm, and they're headquartered in Atlanta. Ron, thanks for being with us here in Studio One.
Glad to be here, Mike.
Well, it's interesting, I think, what's going on with multifamily. It's been an incredible cycle. You know, the amount of new development and how strong the market's been in multifamily, I think, keeps surprising people over time. And you guys are kind of in the forefront of it, right, in the design and helping people design these buildings. So what's new in multifamily? What might surprise some of our audience?
Well, gosh, there's a lot going on. I guess density is one of the big things that's new. I think you're seeing that in a lot of cities, certainly in Atlanta here where we are, but in other cities that we do work in. You know, density all of a sudden is not a bad thing for people. Because it
also equals affordability, right?
It hopefully equals affordability. Land's costing more. You know, traveling and commuting is a big issue. I read something the other day, I think, that Atlanta ranks pretty good in terms of cost to come live here, but when you add in the transportation costs, we drop to like 5th worst in the country or something. So, but anyway, I think density is a big change, and then probably smaller units with a lot of amenities in a lot of the buildings that we're seeing.
What type of amenities are you seeing that's kind of new?
Well, I think it really depends on the project. For instance, we did the flats at Ponce City Market, which is a big redevelopment, won some ULI awards, and of course Ponce City Market has a huge commercial bottom to it. It's a 2 million square foot building, a lot of retail, restaurants. So it had a lot of amenities just built into the mixed use nature of the building. So the residential floors, which was about 260 units, really didn't have a lot of amenities. There were some fitness rooms and some other things, but no swimming pool. No really public or club room spaces. That really the project provided all the amenities. But in other projects that are standalone that don't have all that commercial space, I think we're seeing you know, a lot of people doing roof decks, you know, being in a city where most of these projects are. Views are great, and sort of feeling like you're part of a bigger environment is a great thing. So those are some of the things that come to mind.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned mixed use, and the Ponce City Market's a good example of an adaptive reuse older building that's done really well. What are some tips, Ron, if somebody's going to develop an apartment complex or invest in one that's in a mixed use development situation?
Well, buy the building as cheap as you can.
Buy low, sell high.
Because you know, doing renovations and adaptive reuses, it's not much less expensive, and in some cases can be just as expensive as new construction. I think a lot of people look for character in older buildings and redevelopments, and it really creates a sense of place maybe that's been there beforehand that you don't need to try to recreate. So,
but the construction costs sometimes can be as much or more maybe than new development in some of these buildings?
It can be. I think it depends. You know, if you get a building with good bones, it's got, you know, great structure, a great envelope and skin and windows, maybe not as much. But if you have a building that needs, you know, a lot of remedial structural repair and so forth, it can be the same as new construction, maybe even a little bit more. I think in terms of per square foot. And it's because you're dealing with less efficiencies in an existing building. You know, when you build a new building, you can wring out a lot of efficiencies in terms of just providing the absolute minimum square footage. In existing buildings, you got to work around structure, windows, existing footprints, you know, depths of buildings that are a little bit different. So
as architects, do you guys like those kind of projects, or are they just a lot more work?
We love the adaptive reuses. I've been doing them for a long time, and you know, they're all a little different, and I think they all create something special. But we do new construction as well, so we've done a number of sort of new infill projects, both small scale and a little bit larger. We did a couple of buildings around Centennial Park, as you know, that were condos early on. Did a little infill project in the fairly popular neighborhood of downtown Atlanta. And we're currently working with, there's a big project going on in South Atlanta by a firm called Newport, which is taking a lot of older buildings in the first phase and recycling them into hopefully a lot of residential units on the upper floors and retail and restaurants on the ground floor. So doing a number of those.
And while you're talking about Atlanta, so there's been a lot of new construction, and it seems like when we were selling land 3 years ago, we're like, hey, let's get in the cycle before it's gone. But it seems like it keeps going. It seems like there's still growth. Are you still seeing projects being planned right now?
I think we are, and we see it, midtown, downtown. There's just a lot of units under construction. But if I was with a firm, Ken Blakely, who's a real estate advisor, made a little presentation to a meeting I was in last week, and we're really not delivering as many units as we did in the last big cycle of apartments. It's just that they're so concentrated, and we all see them, working in the urban part of downtown or Atlanta. So I think there's more depth there. We're creating a lot of jobs, and it may keep going, knock on wood, a little bit longer. So,
well, if the future of multifamily in Atlanta, are you seeing your clients lean more toward urban, suburban, or mixed use? You're seeing any kind of trends of what they like?
Well, the focus of my practice and the work I've been involved in over the years has really been urban. And that's not right in the core of the city, but clearly urban environments, whether it's downtown Decatur or downtown Atlanta or midtown and so forth. So we really focus on the urban core, and I think that really, the rest of the community has sort of come that way now. People are moving their businesses downtown or into urban environments, not just Atlanta. We have an office in Columbia, South Carolina, and the same thing's happening there. A lot of new construction, both student housing and market rate housing.
Yeah.
And I think the next move in some of these cities is workforce housing, because a lot of the apartments are really not affordable for most people that work and want to be in these housing projects. So.
Yeah. Well, what are the solutions there to affordability? I think a lot of communities around the country are kind of looking at affordability as an issue in the workforce housing. Give us the silver bullet.
There's no silver bullet. So I think that, in terms of creating workforce housing, I don't think it can be so much sponsored by government input and so forth. It really just needs to be done smartly and efficiently, small units, efficient construction. I don't think it has to be too big, but maybe look on small sites. We're looking at a project on a piece of property in downtown right now that was initially pegged to be a green space around a parking deck, but maybe it's going to be a good spot for some workforce housing, right, sort of in the government center of town.
How small is that one?
It's about, you're a real estate guy, it's about 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah.
So.
And how do you guys feel as architects about these micro units, these really small apartments?
Well, I think they're great. I think everybody here got their eyes open to them when they went to IKEA and saw the small apartments that were fit out there that were either 380 feet or 500 feet or 600 feet. In most other cities in America, all the units are a lot smaller than we're used to seeing down here in the South. And I think we're coming to that now. You just don't need a lot of space to live in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, will you tell my wife that?
Yeah.
What about construction costs? I know you guys are having to deal with that like everyone else, and your clients. Are you seeing construction costs continue to rise, and how are you dealing with it?
Well, I think everybody's dealing with it. It's, there's a volume of work that's going on, which is driving costs up. Materials are going up. Subs are busy, sometimes, and it's cyclical. It's either concrete. A couple of years ago, concrete was very expensive because they were building the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium and they were building the Brave Stadium on either end of the city here. But I think you just got to be smart. You got to work with the contractor early on. I think people need to realize what a realistic construction budget is sooner in the project instead of being surprised after the project gets designed, and then try to whittle away or value engineer it until you sort of cut the meat off the bone.
And if they ask you guys as architects what percentage increases they might want to look at per quarter or per month?
They do, and we use cost consultants to see. They're not rising so fast, but it's just a steady climb, and I think that people get sticker shock when they see what things cost. And one thing that we've seen is happening is for instance, doing residential in a retrofit or an adaptive reuse, it's a little more expensive than doing office use. Well, now, because of the success of projects like Ponce City Market, where office rents in older buildings have gone way up, it may be less expensive to deliver office space than it is residential.
Yeah.
And the rents now are maybe even higher on the office space.
Yeah.
So if you've got a building that could be residential or could be office, you know, the leanings are kind of pushing some people to look at office instead of residential, even though
Yeah.
residential, there's a huge demand, we think. So,
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. You don't have all those bathrooms and kitchens.
bathrooms and kitchens and more walls and doors and, you know,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and now with office being more just kind of open space, a lot of times you don't have a lot of petition walls.
Yeah.
You're doing that with furniture. Well, anything else, Ron, you'd leave our audience with related to multifamily as a parting thought? Besides
Just-
buy low
just-
and sell high,
ju-
which was Stu.
Well, no, that's, yeah. I guess a lot of folks that are doing this stuff, they see what one group has done, and we sort of have a herd mentality in this business. And I think the more innovative everyone can be, the better the products will be. And so the one next to you doesn't need to look like the one you're doing. So hopefully be a little innovative with some of this stuff.
I like that. It's a great tip, Ron. Thanks for joining us.
Sure, you're welcome. That was good, Michael. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us out there across the country or in Atlanta. Stay with us. We'll have more on the multifamily market.